Welcome to the most comprehensive masterclass on drawing the human head from any angle. If you have ever spent hours struggling with a portrait only to realize the eyes look misaligned or the nose feels glued onto a flat surface, you are not alone. Most artists fail at perspective portraits because they try to memorize facial features on a flat two-dimensional canvas. They treat the face like a flat piece of paper, blindly placing eyes, noses, and mouths without understanding the massive three-dimensional volume beneath. To eliminate this confusion forever, the legendary illustrator Andrew Loomis provided us with an elegant, mathematically sound foundation. We must reduce the complex human skull into its simplest geometric form, a solid three-dimensional sphere. Think of the cranium as a solid ball floating freely in space. It is the primary mass that houses the brain, serving as the immutable core structure that every single muscle, bone, and feature attaches to. However, a round sphere alone is symmetrical in every direction, which means it lacks spatial orientation. To give this ball a precise sense of tilt and direction, we must establish its central internal axis. Imagine driving a long metal pin or a heavy steel nail straight through the absolute top pole of this sphere, passing directly through its volumetric center point, and exiting through the bottom pole. This pin represents the core vertical spine and absolute tilt of the skull. This internal axis is the ultimate secret to mastering extreme angles. When a character nods forward, pitches back to look up at the sky, or cocks their head toward a shoulder, this axis rotates precisely in three-dimensional space. By simply controlling the tilt of this single axis line, you instantly lock down the entire perspective of the head before drawing a single detail. Never start a drawing with the eyes or the hair. Always begin with the sphere and its tilting axis. Once this spherical volume is anchored, you eliminate all guesswork, giving your drawing an immediate sense of weight, depth, and structural believability. Now that we have established our solid sphere and its central tilting axis, how do we transform this plain round ball into the unmistakable anatomically correct structure of a human head? Andrew Loomis gives us a brilliant two-step geometric formula, dividing the equator and slicing the side planes. First, we divide the sphere horizontally, exactly along its equator, running completely perpendicular to our central axis. In facial anatomy, this equatorial ring represents the brow line. It acts as an unbreakable reference plane that anchors the eyebrows and the top edges of the orbital sockets. No matter how wildly the head turns or tilts in space, the eyes and brows will always follow this horizontal equatorial ring. Next, we establish vertical orientation by drawing a line from the top pole of our axis, sweeping down across the front face of the sphere to the bottom pole. This forms the middle line of the face, dividing the features into two perfectly symmetrical left and right halves. Where the horizontal brow line intersects this vertical middle line, we arrive at the single most crucial landmark in all of portrait drawing, the all-important cross. This intersection is your ultimate navigation system. It tells you instantly which direction the face is looking and exactly how much it is tilted toward or away from the viewer. Lock this point down and the entire face falls into place. However, a real human skull is not a round basketball. The sides of the head, where the temporal bones sit, are distinctly flattened. To reflect this crucial anatomical truth, Loomis instructs us to slice off a thin, flat disc from both the left and right sides of our sphere. By shearing off these two-side slices, we instantly transform a generic round ball into a simplified three-dimensional cranium with flat temples and a curved front plane. Suddenly, you can clearly see the distinction between the front plane of the face and the side planes of the head. With our flattened sphere and central cross established, we can now map out the precise proportional divisions of the face with mathematical certainty. The human face is naturally governed by a rule of thirds, and the Loomis method allows us to drop these measurements effortlessly onto our three-dimensional model. Starting from the equatorial brow line, we measure upward along the spherical surface to locate the hairline, which sits roughly halfway between the brow line and the top pole of our axis. Taking that exact measurement distance, we drop it downward from the brow line along the vertical middle line to locate the base of the nose. Dropping that exact same distance once more brings us to the absolute bottom of the chin. In a matter of seconds, you have divided the face into three equal, structurally sound units: forehead, nose, and jaw. Now, let us construct the jawline and attach it to our spherical cranium. The jaw does not simply hang in midair. It originates directly from the flattened side slices of our sphere, starting from the exact center point of the side cut. where the temporomandibular joint sits, the jawline sweeps downward and forward, swinging around to lock securely into the base of the chin. This step instantly converts our basic geometry into a fully recognizable human head structure, establishing the hollow box of the mouth and the solid wedge of the jaw. Finally, where do we place the ears? This is a massive stumbling block for beginner artists, but the Loomis model makes it completely foolproof. The ear attaches along the central vertical axis line within the flattened side slice. Vertically, it is perfectly bounded between the brow line at the top and the base of the nose at the bottom. By locking the ear into this precise anatomical slot, it automatically swings and scales correctly in perspective whenever the head tilts upward or downward. Once you master the relationship between the spherical cranium, the side cuts, and the facial proportions, drawing extreme angles like steep foreshortening, worm's eye views, or bird's eye views becomes a predictable mathematical exercise rather than a frustrating guessing game. When drawing a low angle where the character is looking up, the equatorial brow line and nose line curve dramatically upward across the sphere like rings around a planet. Because of foreshortening, you will see the underside of the chin, the nostrils, and the bottom plane of the nose, while the top of the head appears compressed. Conversely, in a steep high-angle view where the character is looking down, the brow line curves downward, exposing the vast top plane of the skull while compressing the lower features toward the chin. The rules never change. Only the curvature of the perspective rings shifts across the spherical surface. To truly elevate your portrait work beyond simple construction lines, you must integrate Bern Hogarth's structural principles of blocky, planar massing. Do not rush to draw smooth, soft skin contours immediately. Think of the head as a carved block of wood or marble. Use bold, decisive cross-contour hatching to define the deep recession of the eye sockets, the bony ridge of the cheekbones, the boxy volume of the nose, and the cylindrical curve of the muzzle. Remember, every stroke of your pen or pencil must describe volume. When shading with fine needle pens or cross-hatching, your lines should wrap around these underlying planes like wire wrapped around a solid sculpture. By combining Loomis's foolproof structural proportioning with Hogarth's powerful planar volume, you build portraits that possess immense weight, three-dimensional presence, and absolute authority. Stop guessing your angles, master the underlying geometry, and let your lines define true spatial depth. To wrap up this masterclass, let us quickly review the core sequence for constructed head drawing. Step 1. Always start with a solid sphere and establish your central spatial axis to lock in the tilt. Step 2. Draw your equatorial brow line and the vertical middle line to locate the all-important cross. Step 3. Shear off the side planes to define your temples, drop your 3 equal proportional measurements down the face, and attach the jawline directly from the center of the side cut. Finally, lock the ears into their anatomical slot between the brow line and nose line, and use bold cross-contour hatching to describe the plane changes. If you master this simple geometric sequence, drawing portraits from challenging angles will no longer intimidate you. Practice this construction method by drawing at least 20 heads from different perspectives in your sketchbook this week. If you found this breakdown helpful, please hit the like button, subscribe to Pen and Ink for more in-depth classical drawing tutorials, and drop a comment below letting me know which perspective angle gives you the most trouble. Thank you for watching. Keep practicing your fundamentals, and I will see you in the next lesson.